Today's lesson is on tree diagrams, and it covers pages 186 to 187. Tree diagrams are a way of showing all the possible outcomes from a specific event. Tree diagrams are useful when you have more than one choice that happens during an event. So, for example, if we have Erin who is going to a camp and she has to choose a morning sport and an afternoon sport. For the morning, she has to choose between gymnastics or rowing, which gives her two choices. So to start your tree diagram, you would have two branches for the two choices, and you can write the whole word or just a letter. So sometimes I'll just put like G for gymnastics, and because there's rowing and rugby, I'll just write row. Then, in the afternoon, she gets to choose between three activities. So the second row, we are going to add three possibilities coming out of each of the initial choices. So we'll have volleyball, hockey, or rugby for each of them. So if we follow this through, she could choose to do gymnastics and volleyball, so that's one choice. Gymnastics and hockey, second choice. Gymnastics and rugby is a third choice. She could also choose to do rowing and volleyball, rowing and hockey, rowing and rugby. So all together, if we count up our final branches on the trees, there are 6. So there are 6 possible outcomes from these two events. That's the total number of choices. Several of the questions in today's assignment are simply going to be giving you a scenario and asking you to draw a tree diagram to show the outcomes. So for the first question, you follow a path from the top of the tree to a box at the bottom and write the sports names on a path in the box. So what happens is your first choice is soccer, your second choice is gymnastics, so you write both of those choices in the box. So you'd follow this path down. What are the two sports? Write them both here. Follow this path. What are the two sports? Write them both here. Follow this down. What are the two sports? Write them in here. So you're just recording first choice soccer, second gymnastics. Write them both. For question 2, they ask you to complete the tree diagram to show all the possibilities of flipping a coin twice. So the first time you could flip it heads or tails. Then the second time you flipped it, you could flip it heads or tails, so then you'd write those two outcomes together, right? So first time heads, second time tails, HT. But if you did heads and heads, you'd write HH. For number 3, Matthew's Camp offers the following activities. So you will have your first choice, so you need 2 branches for the top one, and then each of those breaks off into another set of branches to show all the possible choices. Question 4 asks you to complete the tree diagram. So the first event in your sequence is flipping a coin, heads or tails. So that's why they've drawn 2 arms. So they filled in tails, you fill in the other one. Then you draw a marble from a box that holds 3 marbles of different colors, red, green, and yellow. So that's why there's 3 arms coming out of each of those first initial choices. So you need to fill in those 3 options, red, green, and yellow, red, green, and yellow, and then follow them, and at the bottom, write that outcome. So tails and red is what the TR stands for. For question 5, they're just flipping the tree diagram on its side. So complete the tree diagram that shows all the paths through the cave, up or down. So you could go up or down, and then you can go up or down, right? So here's your options, and then you follow it through and write the 2 letters together. So if you go up and up, UU, up and down, UD. And you just keep following that all the way through. Part B asks you how many paths are there through the cave. So you just look at that ending part here. How many options are there? A monster is waiting at the end of one path. Do you think it is likely or unlikely that Emma's character will meet the monster? So you could see how likely it is to end up on the same paths and what the odds are. Question 6 asks you to draw a tree diagram for all the combinations of numbers you could spin with 2 spinners. So part A asks you how many pairs of numbers add to 4. So when you're drawing your tree diagram, you would start with 3 branches, and then off of those ones you would have 2 more branches, right? So then you'd see how many of them add to 4. So if you had a 2 and a 1, it won't, but if you had the 2 and the 2, it will. And then how many pairs have a product of 4? So remember, product is when the answer to a multiplication question. So it would be when you're multiplying, it equals 4. Question 7, a restaurant offers the following choices for breakfast. You have a main course of eggs, muffins, or pancakes, and juice options of apple, mango, orange, or grape. Draw a tree diagram to show all the different breakfasts you could order. So remember, for main courses, how many branches do we need? And then off of each of those, you need 1 branch for each type of juice. Question 8 asks you to pretend that you're playing darts. And you're going to make a tree diagram to show all the combinations of points you could get by throwing 2 darts at the board. So the first time you throw a dart, your options are getting 1, 2, or 3. So you would need 3 branches. And then after each of those, your second dart has the option of hitting 1, 2, or 3. So you could have those branch off of each of those. Then you're seeing how many combinations add to 5. So you'd have to follow that chart down. 1 and 1 is 2, so that doesn't. 1 and 2 is 3, that doesn't. 1 and 3 is 4, that doesn't. So then you look at the 2 arm. For question 9, they're going to ask you to look at the tree diagram you drew above and fill in the table. So for question 4, so you'll have to go back and look at, this is where we did heads and tails, and then you pull a marble for red, green, or yellow. So the number of branches in the first level. So the first level was just heads or tails, so there's 2 branches. The number of branches in the second level was red, green, or yellow, so that's 3, and the total number of paths is 6. When you look at question 5, your first branch, well, you could go up or down, so that'll probably be 2. Second branch, you could probably go up or down, and then what's the total number of paths? Part B asks you to calculate the total number of paths from the number of branches at each level. So we have 6 paths, there's 2 on the first one and 3 on the second one. So how are these related? It's not addition, because 2 plus 3 is 5, but could it be multiplication? 2 times 3 is 6. So you can see if there's a pattern that works for all of them, that when you multiply the first level by the second level, you get the total number. Then for part C, Tegan performs an experiment with a die with 20 faces and a die with 12 faces. She draws a tree diagram to see the possible outcomes. How many paths will her tree diagram have? So you have the option of either drawing out the tree diagram, so the first one has 20 faces, the second one has 12, or you could use the knowledge you gained from part B of figuring out how to use the number of branches to get there to see the total number of possible outcomes without drawing a lot of little lines. When you're finished this assignment, there will be a Google form to fill out on Google Classroom. If you need any help, please feel free to reach out and we can set up a Zoom call.